Game of Thrones, based on the novel series A Song of Ice and Fire, has grown to be one of the most successful television shows of all time. A complex story complete with over 10,000 years of history and lore, all set in the kingdoms of Westeros and the eastern lands of Essos across the Narrow Sea. With a story so large, it is impressive how much has fit into the HBO series. But as with all book adaptations, changes have been made. And today, in part 1 of a 4-part series, I will be explaining those changes made in Season 1. At least the changes I find most interesting. And before I begin, I must warn you, for this content is dark and full of spoilers. Enjoy! The television series opens with a shot of 3 men of the Night's Watch headed north from Castle Black. Soon after discovering many frozen bodies in a nearby forest, the group is attacked by 2 White Walkers, leaving only one survivor, who instead of returning to warn the Watch, chooses to desert. However, at the start of Book 1, the men had already been ranging for several days, much farther from the wall than the show would have you believe. On the subject of White Walkers, in the book series it is generally only the wildlings, or free folk, who refer to them this way. People of the Seven Kingdoms call them the Others. When introducing the members of the Stark household in the show, Arya is shown very accurately firing an arrow, as Bran is practicing. In the book series, she in fact has never fired an arrow, and has wished that she could learn how. Season 1 takes place 17 years after Robert's rebellion and taking of the Iron Throne, while Book 1 takes place 14 years after. This was done to show the characters as being older than they are in the book series, with Arya being 11 instead of 9, Sansa being 13 instead of 11, Bran is 10 instead of 7, Rickon is 6 instead of 3, both Robb and Jon Snow are 17 instead of 14. The Starks are not the only ones changed, as Daenerys is 16 as opposed to 13, and Prince Joffrey is 16 instead of 12. There is one difference that truly bothered me. In the books, the Targaryens are known for having violet eyes, which sets them apart from all others in the Seven Kingdoms. In the show, this detail was dropped. It was said that using purple contact lenses would take away from the performance of the actors, because emotion is shown through the eyes. Illyrio Mopatis, the man who harbors Daenerys and her brother Viserys, is shown as an overweight man with brown graying hair and a forked beard. However, in the book series he is described with gold oiled hair and a forked beard, as well as being morbidly obese. Khal Drogo as well is different, although not as severely as Illyrio. In the book he is described as having a long mustache with rings and bells in his braid. In the show he is missing many of these accessories, only having one ring in his beard and no bells. In the show, Daenerys is introduced to Khal Drogo very briefly at Illyrio's manse, just for him to assess her and then leave without a word. In the book, however, they are introduced at Khal Drogo's manse in Pentos, during a party in celebration of the engagement. This is also where Ser Jorah Mormont is first introduced. Jorah is also different in appearance, being described in the book as stocky, hairy, bald, and unattractive. The appearance of Tyrion Lannister differs a lot between the book and the television show. In the book, he is described as having a squashed-in face, stunted legs, eyes of different colors, one green and one black, and being unable to walk properly, instead waddling everywhere he goes. All of the scenes taking place during the arrival of the royal family at Winterfell, such as Robb, Jon, and Theon getting ready, Catelyn and Maester Luwin discussing the feast, and Bran climbing, are not described in the book, as the arrival is shown entirely from Eddard's point of view. In the books, it is described that the wheelhouse carrying Queen Cersei and her children is much larger than it was in the show, being pulled by 40 draft horses and being too wide to pass through the castle gate. The events of the feast at Winterfell in the book are different from the show, as the feast is shown from Jon Snow's point of view. Because of this, the main focus of the scene is on Jon's conversations with Benjen and with Tyrion. Scenes such as Jaime and Eddard discussing the tourney, and Arya throwing food at Sansa are not in the book. The television series shows Jon Snow not attending the feast, instead outside practicing with a sword out of anger. This is where he speaks with Benjen and then with Tyrion. However, in the book, he does attend the feast, though he is not allowed to sit at the table near the royal family. As opposed to his portrayal in the show, he sees this as one of the few times he is happy to be a bastard. Sitting in the back with the squires, Jon is out of sight and free to drink as much wine as he pleases. The letter sent to Catelyn by her sister Lysa was actually coded in the book, so only Catelyn could read it. The show simplified this by having the letter sent by Raven and not coded. In the book, the letter is in a box with a false bottom and left in Maester Luwin's room by an unknown party. When King Robert asks Eddard to be his hand, the reaction Catelyn has is opposite in the show from that in the book. In the show, she begs him to stay out of fear, while in the book, she encourages him to accept. The scene from the show where Cersei and Jaime speak of their secrets does not occur near the body of Jon Arryn, and in fact happens as Bran is listening to them in the tower. Also, when Jaime shoves Bran from the window in the show, he uses his left hand, as opposed to his right hand. Tyrion does not sleep in the dog pen, and in fact does not sleep at all that night, instead staying in the library. It is after he leaves the library that he encounters Joffrey and the Hound. In the book, the conversation between Eddard and King Robert about Daenerys takes place while they are riding, and not at breakfast. It is in this scene that Ser Jorah is shown to be an informant for the king. In the show, this is mentioned in episode 5. When Sansa and Joffrey encounter Arya and the butcher's boy Micah, they had been riding for quite some time. The series shows them as having taken a short walk. The show makes it appear that Arya is only hiding in the forest for the afternoon after her wolf Nymeria attacks Joffrey, when in fact, she had actually been missing for 4 days before being discovered by Jory. He helps her make Nymeria leave by throwing stones so she may not be killed. King Robert's brother Renly is present when Robert is questioning Arya, but bursts out laughing at the mention of Joffrey being disarmed by a young girl. Robert then orders him to leave. When Eddard must execute Sansa's wolf lady in place of Nymeria, the book depicts him doing so with his greatsword Ice, as opposed to the dagger he uses in the show. Afterward, he orders the body taken north. In the book, the death of Lady has no connection to Bran waking. He wakes at the end of a dream in which he learns of his higher purpose. In the book, Catelyn and Ser Roderick arrive in King's Landing before Eddard, having taken a ship from White Harbor as opposed to riding as seen in the series. When Catelyn meets with Littlefinger, the meeting takes place at the Red Keep. The series has this meeting take place in a brothel, as Littlefinger feels Catelyn would be quickly recognized at the keep. Because of this change, Catelyn's outrage and the line, "Back alley Sally," do not appear in the book. The show tells that Jaime had stabbed the Mad King through the back with his sword, while in the book, he had actually slit his throat. The book has Ser Barristan Selmy present at all small council meetings, for he is the Lord Commander of the King's Guard. However, in the show he is not present, using the excuse that he dislikes politics. This was done to change the story so that Sir Barristan would not be immediately aware that Ser Jorah was a spy. Several recruits at the Wall were cut from the show, such as Toad and Halder. Jon is seen fighting multiple recruits in the show, while in the books he only fights Grenn. While fighting Grenn, Jon does not break his nose in the book, he instead breaks his wrist. When Jon is cornered by Grenn and other recruits, it is Donal Noy, the blacksmith, who intervenes, not Tyrion. He is also the one who urges Jon to befriend them. Jane Poole has a smaller role in the television series. In the book, she is the one who accompanies Sansa to the Hand's Tourney, not Arya. She becomes sick at the sight of Sir Hugh's death to Gregor Clegane. Lord Commander Jorah Mormont has a pet raven in the book series, but this was omitted from the TV show. Also, Arya's instructor, Syrio Forel, is shown with curly hair in the series, while in the book he is bald. In the book, Castle Black does not actually have walls or a gate. This is so that while defending the realm from what lies north, the Watch cannot rebel against the Seven Kingdoms. The story of Sam's father ordering him to join the Night's Watch involved his father skinning a deer. This was used in the show instead for the introduction of Tywin Lannister. In the book, Eddard learns that Stannis Baratheon accompanied Jon Arryn on the investigation of Robert's heirs. The show gives no mention of this, however. Gendry is described as being 16 years old in the book, but his depiction in the show has him in his 20s. The scene in the show where Littlefinger scares Sansa with the story of Gregor Clegane and Sandor Clegane, the Hound, does not happen in the book. Instead, it is the Hound himself who tells her of how his face was burned, and then threatens to kill her if she ever tells anyone. During the ambush on Catelyn's party by the Hill Tribes, Tyrion is shown in the series to fight only with a shield. In the book, he uses an axe instead. In the series, Arya chases a cat down to the dungeon. In the book, however, she instead is seen by Prince Tommen and Princess Myrcella while chasing cats, who send guards after her. She runs away before she is recognized and ends up in the dungeon hiding from the guards. This is where she overhears the conspirators talking. Also, the dragon skull is shown as white in the series, while in the book, dragonbone is actually black because of high iron content. The journey Catelyn must take to the top of the Eyrie is not shown in the series, but in the book was long and dangerous, mostly done on the back of a mule. She was guided by Maya Stone, the bastard daughter of King Robert Baratheon, who was not included in the television series. Tyrion does not arrive at the top on the same day Catelyn does in the book, but is winched up the following day in a basket. Robin Arryn, the son of Jon Arryn and Lord of the Vale, was named Robert in the book, but was likely changed to Robin to avoid confusing him with Robert Baratheon. The relationship between Renly Baratheon and Sir Loras Tyrell is hinted at in the book, but a scene was added to the series confirming it. The scene in which Eddard and Jaime duel is much different in the book. In the book, the two never actually fought, and Eddard was not speared through the leg. Jaime ordered Eddard's men killed in order to frighten him, and in the chaos his horse falls on his leg, crushing it. The exact killer of Jory is not shown. There is a flashback in the book that was entirely omitted from the television series. This takes place from Eddard's point of view and depicts the events at the Tower of Joy. Prince Rhaegar Targaryen had taken Eddard's sister Lyanna to the tower, where he left her to fight against Robert's rebellion. Eddard had arrived at the tower at the end of the war with 6 companions: Howland Reed, Ethan Glover, Lord William Dustin, Theo Wool, Martin Cassell, and Sir Mark Riswell. They were met by 3 members of the King's Guard, Sir Arthur Dane, Sir Oswell Went, and Lord Commander Gerald Hightower. Only Eddard and Howland Reed survived the battle, and upon reaching his sister, he found her in what was described as a bed of blood. With her dying words, she made him promise her something. The promise is not told to the reader. This is what led many to speculate that Jon Snow may in fact be the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna. When Bran is ambushed while riding, only 4 wildlings are present in the show, while the book describes 6. Robb and Theon are not the only ones who come to his rescue in the book. Bran's wolf Summer and Robb's wolf Greywind kill several wildlings as well. The popular phrase from the show, "And what do we say to death? Not today," was never spoken in the book. In the book, Tyrion's confession is stopped immediately, while in the show he is able to list several crimes, all of which are hilarious. Tyrion's trial by combat happens rather differently in the book than it did in the show. In the book, it occurred in the garden rather than around the open moon door. The death of Ser Vardis is also much more dramatic in the series than it is in the book. In the book, Bronn stabs him in the chest and does not throw him through the moon door. In the book, Eddard confronts Cersei in the Godswood of the Red Keep, so the gods can see. Cersei confesses to having no children by Robert, and only having been pregnant by him once, but she had aborted the child. In the show, Stannis receives a letter informing him that Robert has no legitimate heir, and that he is the next in line for the throne. In the book, having been involved in Jon Arryn's investigation, Stannis was already aware of the relationship between Jaime and Cersei. The events around Jon Snow and the other recruits becoming true men of the Night's Watch was simplified for the show. While in the book, many recruits were not allowed to take their vows and instead had to remain recruits. This included Sam, who was not seen fit to pass. Jon had to speak to Maester Aemon and convince him to speak for Sam, citing his advanced education and ability to read and write. The plan ended up working and Sam was made a steward to assist Maester Aemon. It is mentioned in the show by Cersei that Robert had a beard at their wedding, while in the book it was said that Robert only grew a beard later in life to cover up his double chin. The scene in the show where Septim Ordain sends Sansa to her room as the massacre begins does not happen the same in the book. Sansa is upset about her father's decision to end her engagement to Joffrey and send her back to Winterfell, so she speaks to Queen Cersei, who immediately has her imprisoned in a tower room before the massacre begins. When Syrio fights the Lannister guards in the book, they are more lightly armored than they were in the show, and instead of simply injuring or knocking them out, he kills them with stabs through the neck and eyes, all with a wooden sword. In the book, Jon Snow, while headed to Lord Commander's office, finds the body of a guard who had been killed by the White, Othor. The guard's head had been twisted completely around. Also, when Jon cuts off Othor's hand, it does not fall away uselessly like it does in the show. It continues to fight independently of the body, causing much more difficulty for Jon. In the book, Tyrion actually tells Bronn and Shae the story of his wife, Tysha, separately. He tells Bronn while they are traveling through the mountains after the events at the Eyrie. The show depicts a duel for power between Khal Drogo and Mago after Daenerys takes away his rape victim, resulting in the later fatal wound to Khal Drogo's chest. This did not happen in the book, however, as Khal Drogo was actually injured in a battle against another Khalasar. No character in the books actually refers to Sansa as Little Dove. The scene where Ser Barristan is relieved of his position as Lord Commander was much less peaceful in the book. Ser Barristan throws his sword at Joffrey's feet as he does in the show, but also suggests that Stannis will soon arrive to depose him anyway. Joffrey sees this as treason and orders him captured, but Ser Barristan manages to escape after killing 2 gold cloaks. In the book, when negotiating terms with Walder Frey, he demands one more condition, that 2 of his grandsons be taken to Winterfell as wards. These are Big Walder and Little Walder. In the show, Tyrion is quickly knocked out by a hammer and misses the entire battle. In the book, however, he fully participates, though he must wear mismatched armor, as his custom set is at Casterly Rock. This leads to a moment where he spears a soldier's horse with his unicorn helm. He also fights against a knight and forces him to yield. The speech given after Eddard's false confession, "As we sin, so do we suffer," was done by the High Septon. He is also the one who asked Joffrey what would be done with Eddard. In the show, this role is given to Grand Maester Pycelle. In the book, it is Maester Luwin who accompanies Bran to the crypt below Winterfell, not Osha. The Maester is also bitten by Shaggy Dog, Rickon's wolf, when they find Rickon. He takes them both to his tower, and moments later, the Raven arrives with word of the death of Eddard. Before the Raven arrives, both Summer and Shaggy Dog howl, and Rickon begins to cry. The bard in the series that Joffrey punishes is not named in the book. That is because the character Marillion in the book plays a larger role later in the story. He accompanied Catelyn to the Eyrie and remained there. The fight between Arya and Hot Pie is much less violent in the show. In the book, he attempts to attack her with a jagged rock, and she beats him until he soils his pants. She is later punished severely for it by Yoren. Also, Lami, another of Arya's companions, calls her Lumpyhead in the book, but not in the series. Unlike in the show, Sam does not ride out after Jon Snow as he attempts to desert the Night's Watch in the book. He instead warns the others, and 7 people go after him. Jon tries to hide, but ultimately his wolf Ghost gives away his position. In the show, when Daenerys is found in the remains of Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, she is completely unharmed. However, in the book, while she is unharmed, her hair was completely burned away, leaving her bald, having to wait for the hair to regrow. That's all I have for this time. Make sure to come back next Saturday as I go over changes made in Season 2. And please leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite or least favorite change is in the show. Have a good day.